pinch off a basil leaf in your kitchen. There's a soft snap, a burst of scent, and then what looks like nothing. No cry, no flinch, no dramatic sign that anything happened at all. And that quiet is exactly why most of us miss the real story. We are animals, so we've been trained by our own nervous systems to recognize hurt in animal terms. Movement, noise, withdrawal, a face changing, a body pulling back. Plants do none of that in a way we easily understand. So, when a leaf tears, we assume the moment ends there. A little damage, a little smell, no big deal. But for the plant, that moment may be the beginning. Because in the seconds after injury, a plant is not doing nothing. It is detecting rupture, measuring loss, sending alarms, changing chemistry. And in many cases, we're preparing to respond differently if it happens again. So, do plants remember being hurt? Not the way you remember a bad conversation or a childhood wound. Not as a mental replay inside a brain, because plants do not have brains. They do not have neurons arranged into anything like an animal nervous system, and there is no good evidence that a plant feels pain the way an animal does. That part matters. But if we stop there, we make a different mistake. We hear no brain and translate it into nothing meaningful is happening. No memory, no real sensing, no sophisticated response. And that is wrong. Plants are not passive decorations. They are living sensory systems built on another plan entirely. They cannot run from danger, so they have evolved to become exquisitely good at detecting it, interpreting it, and being changed by it. What looks like stillness is often strategy. What looks like silence is often signaling, and what looks like recovery may actually be memory. Here's the first layer of what happens when a plant is hurt. When a leaf is chewed, cut, or crushed, cells break open. Water balance shifts. The plant suddenly faces a set of urgent problems all at once. Tissue is lost, microbes can enter, water can escape, and whatever did the damage may still be there and feeding. That means injury is not just damage. It is information, and plants treat it that way. Inside the plant, membranes change their electrical state. Chemical messengers are released. Pressure shifts through tissues. Signals travel from the wounded area to distant leaves that haven't been touched yet. In a landmark 2018 study published in Science, the researchers, including Masatsugu Toyota and Simon Gilroy, showed that when Arabidopsis plants were wounded, waves of calcium moved through the plant as part of a long-distance alarm response. One of the key signals involved was glutamate. That word may sound familiar, because glutamate is also a major signaling molecule in animal nervous systems. That does not mean a plant has hidden thoughts or a secret little brain. It means life reuses powerful chemistry. If a molecule is good at carrying urgent information, evolution will keep finding ways to use it. In plants, that wound signal helps distant tissues get the message fast. Something happened here. Prepare over there. And that preparation matters, because one leaf being bitten is not the same as one leaf being lost. If the plant can warn the rest of itself before the damage spreads, it can survive the attack far more effectively. That warning often triggers jasmonates, a family of plant hormones heavily involved in wound and herbivore defense. Once those pathways switch on, the plant may begin making compounds that make its tissues harder to digest, less appealing to insects, or more chemically hostile to whatever is chewing on it. So the image most of us carry, the helpless leaf quietly enduring injury, is incomplete. A plant under attack is coordinating. It is reallocating resources. It is shifting priorities. It is turning a local injury into a whole-body response. And some of that response rises into the air around us. That fresh smell of cut grass, the scent people call clean or nostalgic or summery, is not just green. It is a chemical event. Damaged plants release what scientists call green leaf volatiles, an airborne compounds produced when tissues are torn. To us, it smells pleasant. To the biological world, it can mean something closer to this. Damage happened here. Those chemicals can help repel herbivores. They can attract predators or parasites that attack the herbivores. And in some cases, they can be detected by nearby plants, which then begin adjusting their own defenses. Ecologist Richard Carbon and others have spent years showing that plant communication is not a fantasy layered onto nature. Under the right conditions, plants really can eavesdrop on chemical cues from damaged neighbors and respond. So, even before we get to memory, the first surprise is this. When a plant is hurt, it does not merely endure the event. It broadcasts, coordinates, and prepares. But an alarm is not yet a memory. A fire alarm can ring and leave nothing behind. The deeper question is whether injury changes the plant after the immediate crisis is over. Does the experience leave a trace? Does the next attack meet the same plant, or a plant that has been altered by what happened before? This is where the story gets deeper. In plant science, one important concept is priming. After a first attack or stress, a plant may enter a state in which its defenses can be activated faster, stronger, or more efficiently the next time. That is a form of memory, not memory as autobiography, memory as changed readiness. And once you understand that, the whole idea of plant intelligence starts to feel less like poetry and more like biology. Because a plant cannot afford to live at full panic all the time. Defense is expensive, making bitter compounds, toxic compounds, stronger cell walls, protein inhibitors, and all of that costs energy. Energy spent on defense is energy not spent on growth, roots, flowers, fruits, and seeds. So, if a plant reacted to every disturbance as if it were mortal danger, it would damage itself in another way. This is what makes plant memory so elegant. It is often not a permanent scream. It is a calibration. Stay alert. Don't overreact, but don't forget. Researchers have shown in many systems that previous damage can leave plants more sensitive to future attack. Certain defense-related genes can be activated more readily. Hormone networks can be poised to fire faster. Proteins may already be present and waiting. The plant is no longer starting from zero. It's more like a house after a break-in. The doors are checked more often. The lights come on faster. The family sleeps lighter. That is not consciousness in the human sense, but it is undeniably a past experience altering future behavior, and plants can be surprisingly selective about what counts. At the University of Missouri, Heidi Appel and Rex Cockcroft found that Arabidopsis plants responded to vibrations made by caterpillars chewing. The plants increased chemical defenses after exposure to those vibration patterns. That detail is easy to miss, but it's astonishing when you sit with it. The plant was not simply reacting to any random shake in the world. It was responding differently to a biologically meaningful cue. That means a plant's world is not a blur. It is sorted, interpreted, ranked by consequence. Some signals mean wind, some mean rain, some mean harmless contact, some mean something is eating me right now. And if that happens more than once, the plant may not meet the second event naively. So, where is that memory stored? If there is no brain to hold it, often it's stored in changing sensitivities across the body, in hormone balances, in proteins left standing by, in altered metabolism, and sometimes in changes to chromatin, the packaging around DNA, which affects how easily certain genes can be switched on later. In other words, the memory is embodied. This may be the most important reframe in the whole story. We tend to think of memory as a thing that lives in a mind, a scene replayed, a feeling recalled, a narrative. But biology is full of memories that are not stories. Your immune system remembers an infection. Your skin remembers friction and grows a callus. Your muscles remember repeated demand and adapt, not with sentences, with changed capacity. Plant memory is often like that. A plant is not remembering hurt by dwelling on the past. It is remembering hurt by being physically different because the past happened. And that means the ordinary leaf in front of you is not just a piece of green matter, it is a record. It is the latest version of a body shaped by weather, touch, insects, pathogens, pruning, shade, thirst, and survival. It has a history, even if that history is written in chemistry instead of thought. In some cases, that history may reach farther than a single individual plant. There is evidence that, under certain conditions, stress responses can influence the next generation through epigenetic changes. That does not mean every plant hands down every wound like a family legend. The science is more careful than that. It varies by species, by stress, by context. But the larger point stands. Biology has more than one way to remember. And once you accept that, a lot of familiar plant behavior stops looking simple. A clipped stem sending up new branching is not a sign the plant enjoyed the damage. It is a survival response shaped by long evolutionary experience with loss. A tree changing its chemistry after repeated browsing is not overreacting. It is adjusting probabilities. A leaf that seems fine one day and more defended the next is not being mysterious. It is doing what life does when the world proves dangerous, learning in the only way its body can. This is also where the emotional meaning changes. Because maybe the most misleading thing about plants is their pace. If a dog is hurt, we know instantly. If a bird panics, we recognize it. If a human winces, our own body answers back. Plants move and signal on a different clock, often below the threshold of our sympathy, because they do not perform suffering in a language we are built to read. But slowness is not emptiness. Silence is not indifference. Stillness is not the absence of experience. It is only the absence of familiar drama, and that misunderstanding has consequences. When we treat plant damage as trivial because it is quiet, we overlook how much ecological stability depends on these hidden signals working properly. A healthy plant under attack does not just passively lose tissue. It communicates internally, sometimes externally, and shifts its defenses with remarkable precision. But those systems are not invincible. Chronic drought, heat stress, polluted air, damaged soils, repeated severe herbivory, and habitat simplification can all strain a plant's ability to respond. Some research suggests that air pollutants such as ozone can break down volatile warning compounds, making it harder for chemical messages to travel between plants. So, a damaged ecosystem is not only one where leaves are lost, it can also be one where information is degraded. Warnings arrive late. Defenses are mistimed. Neighbors fail to prepare. And underground, the story may be even more complex. There is growing evidence that roots and fungal partnerships can influence how signals move between plants in some environments. It is not a magical forest internet, in the simplistic way it's sometimes described, but it is a reminder that plants do not live as isolated green objects. They live in chemical neighborhoods, which means hurt is rarely private. One wound can ripple outward through air, soil, insects, fungi, and future growth. So, now, go back to that first moment. The basil leaf in your hand, the smell released into the room, the plant still standing there, giving you no performance of pain, no visible plea for sympathy. What happened in that moment was not nothing. Cells ruptured, signals moved, defenses began. The future shifted, at least a little, and if similar harm comes again, the plant may meet it differently, because it has already been changed by what happened before. That is the closest, honest answer to the question, do plants remember being hurt? Yes, in the biological sense that matters most for survival. Not with a brain, not with feelings we can simply map onto our own, but with distributed signaling, altered chemistry, primed defenses, and sometimes long-lasting molecular traces of what they have endured. A plant does not have to think like us for its past to matter. That, to me, is the real wonder. Not that plants are secretly tiny people. Not that a flower is hiding a human-style mind. but that life found another path entirely, another way to sense danger, another way to store the past, another way to turn injury into knowledge. So the next time you smell cut grass, or notice a ragged leaf, or brush past a plant you've always treated like scenery, I'd remember this. You may be looking at a living body that has been keeping score all along. If you've ever noticed, a plant seem to change after being pruned, touched, battered by weather, or attacked by pests, tell me what you saw in the comments. And if you want more science-backed ways to see the hidden lives of plants differently, subscribe.